What do you do when you love someone and God says no? Because I think we tend to think that a no is denial, but really it is protection. So let's get into the video and see how God protects us, even from the people we love the most. Hi guys, my name is Marian Ndung'u. Welcome to this segment. This is Marian Ndung'u, and we are talking love and truth. And the topic of today is interesting. If you love someone and God says no concerning them, how do you deal with it? Do you still continue? Do you put an end to it? Or what do you do? Let's have that conversation. I was in university. So the person I was dating, we started dating while I was in high school. And this was my third year in the relationship. Before I got what I call my instructions from the Lord, that this is not the right person for me at that particular time, I was already feeling it. Like there was something in me that felt the relationship was not going anywhere. At that particular time, I was born again, but I was going out for parties and everything. So I decided by then, you know what, I'm cutting that life and I'm being totally sold out to Christ. So of course that put an hindrance to our relationship, because we would meet probably on Saturdays or Sunday in the evening. In between our school, he was in a different university, so was I. So the only time we could meet was on weekends. And probably the time I was free now, I needed to go for keishas and I needed to I was so busy with church. So the relationship already was struggling, but I was holding on to that particular relationship. And I remember going for meetings and I would just clearly hear God minister to me through the woman of God that was preaching. And you know, when the preacher is now preaching, and then she points, it's like she's looking at you and pointing at you and hinting to you, but you know too well that by then this message is for me. So the first time I went to a meeting and she was like, there's someone here who God is saying that you need to let go of that relationship. And you know, I am there thinking, no, my relationship is okay. It is not sexual, so I'm not sinning against God. We are not compromising in a way that I feel like the relationship is not good for me. So probably that is another person's word. But those words stuck with me. Then again, I go to another meeting, a different meeting altogether. The same lady is preaching, and then she's repeating the same thing. God is telling you today, there is someone here who needs to let go of that relationship. And then this particular time, she used these words: if that man is for you, let him go and he will come back. But if he is not yours, release him, because you are hindering yourself and even that man from meeting their true partners. And that now hit me even harder. And I loved this guy. So what I decided to do was go out with him. So I called him home, did a dinner with him, made his favorite meal. He loved chapati. And then I told him, I'm sorry, but this is the end of our relationship. We are not going to be in a relationship again. He did not respond really. He just hugged me for minutes. And I think it was a long few minutes because it felt like forever. And he left. And after he went, I cried consecutively for like 3 days. When I got the opportunity to cry, I cried. Because I really loved this guy. I thought, you know, the way you form a future with that particular person and you're like, okay, I have lost a good person. I didn't continue talking to him. I think at some point he lost his number and then there was no communication. You know, the way you try to follow up and then it's like God has already put hindrances, so he lost his number. I don't think if he renewed that particular number or it took him a longer period. So the time I was trying to call him back, we get back together, he was not available. And then I think from there, I got so busy with church, I forgot. And then life went on and I moved on, but I didn't heal immediately. So it took me 4 years again before I got into another relationship or even tolerated another person. So there's someone here asking me, how do you know the voice of God and how do you know that God has spoken to you and He's saying no to a relationship? I think we always know. We are somehow related with God. You know, scripture talks about we are made in His image and likeness. There's just a part of you that knows whether this thing is not sitting well with me. So how can you know? Because there are ways you can know. First and foremost, is like you lack peace by the way. There's just something. Every time there's something that gives you anxiety, you are uncertain and uneasy concerning something, and you're not very sure. You cannot pinpoint because you have probably not got him in the act or doing something bad, so you're not very sure. So there's that lack of peace. The other thing is unmatched purpose. There's just you don't agree in terms of the calling that you have or what God is calling you to do in the future. So even when you're trying to discuss your future, there's just something that is not aligning. And then you find that some of us compromise on values. That is also another sign that you can know by the way God is saying no to that relationship. You are tempted to shrink spiritually just to keep them. There's something that you need to compromise so that you can have this particular person. So when you feel like you are compromising something that is very core to you in terms of values, then that just know that that person is not right for you. And it's also a way of God telling you that by the way that thing does not work. The other thing is closed doors. Family disapprovals, financial, spiritual mentors are warning you about that particular person, or just recurring heartbreaks. You know, every time you're with this person, you're ever breaking up and you don't even know what's going on really. The other thing is stunted growth. You're becoming less of who God created you to be, the fact that you're with this particular person. Because as we have said, you are compromising on your values. There is always something that you're putting down that by the way you need to know that this is a sign. So what about those people that genuinely are in love? They don't have the red signs, but still the relationship is not in accordance by the to the will of God. I was in that predicament. Sometimes love can feel deep, so real, but it doesn't always mean that that love is divine. So let me ask you, has a door closed suddenly in a relationship you really wanted? Okay. Have you prayed and fasted, but peace never comes? That might be God saying that this is not the best person for you. God's no doesn't mean rejection. It often means protection. There's something that God is protecting you from that you don't see right now, but because you're in love, you cannot see. Scripture talks about in Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. Your understanding here by the fact that you love someone and by the way you have analyzed them, there are no red flags and you feel that the relationship is okay. Even when your heart is screaming yes, hey, and God whispers no. He sees what you cannot see by the way, and when you trust him, eventually you will see it. Neuroscience shows us that the same area of the brain activated during romantic love is also activated during addiction. So love can be an addiction, and you might actually be thinking that you're in love yet you're addicted to something, and that means by then that is why some people will have pain and feel like it is physical pain when they are letting go of a loved one. But healing begins when you release what is unhealthy, even when it is hard for you. Amos 3:3 talks about can two walk together really unless they agree. If walking with them, with that particular person, means that you are walking away from God, then that is not the person for you. I'm going to talk about how to let go when it hurts. So, letting go is not easy, but obedience, of course, is better than sacrifice, as we always talk about it. So, be honest with God because it won't be easy, and cry if you have to, mourn, weep, but in the presence of God. Don't be afraid to show him your pain because, of course, it is something that you're feeling and you need help to actually come out of it and to heal. Okay. The other thing is don't idolize these people. Sometimes we fall in love with potential, not the reality. I'm in love with them or with the version of them I have created in my mind, so I don't want to lose them. And you have made a perfect image of that person that you don't see their flaws. And if you allow yourself to actually allow the Spirit of God to lead you and to help you, eventually you will overcome and you will heal. And sometimes you actually are able to see some of the things that you are not seeing because you are too crowded. Cut off false hopes. Stop stalking their socials. Stop praying for reconnection. Start praying for redirection. As I was telling you, when I let go of my relationship with that particular ex, I wanted us to get back together because it didn't make sense to my mind why I had broken up with a good person. He had not cheated, he had not lied, he had not done anything that pertains to why I should let him go. As much as I felt that whatever was being preached was a sermon for me, it was like God using that particular preacher to speak to me. And it didn't happen once, it happened twice. Then I was like, now I need to obey, because it made me feel very uncomfortable. Every time she spoke about it, it just resonated to my relationship. If you continue stalking that person, you will miss out on why in the first place God was saying no to that particular person. Don't lose out on what God has for you because you're insisting on your own way. Then fill the void with purpose. Serve God, build yourself, heal. When your hands are full of purpose, your heart begins to mend. Like your heart will follow. Yeah, in Isaiah 55:8-9 talks about, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. God's no is often the setup for a better yes. Someone asked me a question sometime back, and I feel I should answer that before I continue. That what if God speaks to you concerning someone, and God has told you this is your spouse, but at the end of the day you don't end up together? God spoke to me concerning another gentleman altogether. This was years later, I think 4 or 5 years later. And this particular person, when we started having a conversation, when he was wooing me, I wasn't interested. I didn't even like him. I didn't even like the way he looked. And then eventually, thereabout, while I was continuing with my business, with him in that level, to a point that before I knew it, I liked him. And it didn't make sense to me because I had said no to this particular person for 3 years straight. And I wasn't backing down. I just didn't want to date this particular person. So when I heard God and God talked about him being my husband, it shook me. I even cried. I was like, no, why did I fall in love with him? He has a big nose. I don't want him. I don't want him. I cried. But the guy was awesome as well. I always find awesome people that I fall for, and he was amazing. But then God said yes to this particular person. So this is the thing. Because I had said no so long, for 3 years. When I said yes to him, the guy was like, he was confused. He didn't get why now I was saying yes. And I couldn't tell him that God told me that we were supposed to like be an item, or he was my husband for that particular time. And I remember I was listening to TD Jakes, and he was talking about God moves on. Like, don't stick there. And I was there for I think a year plus, on and off, us fighting and struggling because he was confused that I had said yes, and I was now there because honestly, I now know who you are in my life, so I need us to work things out. We tried to date, we dated for 3 days, it didn't work. Okay, he ended it. He said he had sworn to Sujui he wouldn't marry me and everything, and that was that. And I took it and I went to God and I was like, now, Father, you have caused me to love this person, and now he doesn't want me. He said, I am not his wife. I cried. And after a while, I was listening to that message by T.D. Jakes of God Moves On. And when I was listening to that message, there's something he spoke about. Even when it is the will of God, sometimes God will allow that will to just like iachiliwe tu, not because that person is not right for you. It is because that person did not want to follow the will of God. He had his own way. This guy said, no, me, I don't want, because I swore to myself after you rejected me for so long that you cannot love me. So now that you're telling me that you can love me, it doesn't make sense to me. So I don't want this relationship, okay? And that was okay. And I never told him until today. I have never told him that God spoke to me concerning him in that particular manner. So sometimes God can tell you that that is your spouse. But you know, at the end of the day, there is that will that I have of saying yes to God's will. So if I don't say yes to God's will, then I won't be open to marry you or something. So that is why sometimes you will find that God has spoken something and sometimes you don't end up together, because this person probably also loves someone else or whatever, and God just orchestrates miraculously for you to find other people who will be of purpose and will do probably more or greater things than what initially he had for you. So that also can be a reason, by the way, personally, you refuse the will of God. So yeah, you can be there. God has said yes, that is your person, but then that particular person is like, no, you are not my person, and that can happen because it happened to me. So be careful as well, and don't be so quick to tell people God told you, because I feel like if I had told that guy that, I would have manipulated him into a relationship. Yes, he liked me. Yes, he wanted to have a relationship with me. But I felt because as a man, he should lead the relationship. If I was to tell him how and what God told me, then I would be now the one leading the relationship. And that is not my forte. I just am a girl that is allowing the man to lead. So if he led by saying no, then that is what I will follow, because I need him to always be the leader in my house. For him to see me like Adam saw Eve and said, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Hey. Now that's what I wanted. Because he didn't say that, I went on and I'm now married to another person. And I'm in my 50th year of marriage and I'm happy, and I know that this one as well is the will of God. Okay? Yeah. So what if you're still confused, by the way? Sometimes it's not clear if the no is a no or it's just silence, and you're unsure. So ask yourself, does this relationship draw me closer to God or further from Him? Would I be okay if the person never changed? Like, if he didn't change the way he is right now, would I still be okay? And then from that, then you will know. Again, am I trying to force what God never approved? Because some of us force issues. We say we dreamt, we say we had, we say there was whatever it is. Because if you force again, then it becomes an issue. In the near future, you will have issues, and then you will go back and blame God. James 1:5 talks about, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. You have to surrender so that God can lead you, and that is very important. So what are the promises that we need to know? That, by the way, the promise beyond that particular pain you're feeling right now, because God has said no. You're not being punished, and you and you're being prepared, by the way, for something greater. Every no that breaks your heart is making room for the right yes. And the delay, the denial, the detour, it's all divine. It is part of God's plan. Romans 8:28 talks about, and we know in all things God works together for good for those who love Him. So if you know you love God, all things are working together for your good. That delay, that denial, and even the detour that you will face in that relationship. And I know it will hurt you, and it has hurt, and it will continue to hurt. But you will look back and say, anyway, thank God that didn't work. Because for real, whatever you're experiencing now is greater and it is more fulfilling. Because when God says no, it's because He has a better yes for you. That is what I was talking about, that sometimes He just orchestrates things. Yeah, it might look like that was the divine purpose of God. But then you find out, by the way, whatever God was preparing for you is even better and greater. So, if this video has been helpful to you, tell us, have you ever loved someone and God said no concerning that particular person? And what did you do? Yeah, share with us, of course, and let us know. We usually upload videos every other week, and we would love to have you come, join, watch, talk, have these conversations so that we can grow together. Aba namna gani? God does not withhold to punish you. He withholds to protect you. So just know that even right now, even when you're having that pain, even when God has said no to that particular relationship, it doesn't mean that God does not want the best for you. It doesn't mean that God, by the way, is withholding something from you. It just means that God wants the best for you. Trust His will, trust His plan, and everything will work out. You are loved, you're seen, and your story isn't over, because God is in the business of restoring what the cankerworms have eaten and what the locusts have destroyed. So you will rebuild a relationship that is God ordained, that is divine, and that will give you fulfillment in the near future. Thank you so much for staying tuned. See you on the next vlog. Bye-bye.